Hello, and welcome back to the Point and Left podcast with your hosts,
Skyler
and Kaylynne. Awesome. Oh my God, guys, we have had the most eventful weekend. We have just been nonstop watching Barbie movies.
This is what Valentine's Day is about.
Yes.
All right? Watching Barbie movies, intoxicated, with your gals.
It's a wonderful time. So basically, if you recall in, I think it was the last episode, I have not seen, I had not seen Barbie, Princess and the Pauper. So of course we had to watch. It is so good.
It's stupid good. Usually, Barbie movies, there's always a tinge of nostalgia to it. Like, you always this is the greatest thing ever known to mankind. You say that kind of like as a meme. They are still Barbie movies. They are still toy commercials. They're sometimes cringy. The line delivery is funny, whatever. But I'm sure that you thought that I must have been exaggerating when I told you that Barbie, Princess and the Pauper is a genuinely good movie. You're just like, haha, whatever. Barbie. I have a free Friday afternoon. Why not? I converted you.
It was so good. It was so good, guys. Like, I really did not think it, it's so true. I was like, it'll be like a Barbie movie. Like, it'll be nostalgic, like, it'll be cute, whatever. It's genuinely good. And Martin Short is in it.
There's twists and turns. Twists and turns.
Continually.
In a Barbie movie. The plot is thick in a Barbie movie. The songs are good in a Barbie movie. They did not come to play.
The sexual tension in the Barbie movie.
The sexual tension can sometimes be a lot.
It was like, I was like squealing. Like, I felt like such a little girl. I was just like, oh my God, this is so cute. And then at the end, not to spoil, skip ahead 15 seconds if you haven't,
right.
If you haven't seen it. But at the end, Erica, yes. Erica doesn't even end up with the guy. She's like, no, now that I'm free, I'm gonna go adventure and see the world. And then he's like, okay, I'll be waiting. And I'm like,
and then he does. And then they have a double wedding.
Oh my God, the double wedding. I will say, would never have a double wedding.
Yeah.
Could it be me?
But that's such little girl best friend.
Yeah.
It's like, one day we'll get married together.
Yeah.
Because you can't imagine when you're a little kid having the most special day without your best friend there, also having their special day. It's such a little kid friendship moment.
It's just perfect. It's genuinely so well written, and I need to see it on Broadway. If there are any Broadway producers, it would be a fabulous Broadway show, and I would love it.
I would be seated.
Yeah, I would be sacked. I would simply be sacked. Yeah, and then last night we watched Barbie Mermaidia.
Still sexual tension, but not the ones that I wanted.
Yeah, it was honestly not as good as Princess and the Pauper, but still very good.
What is?
I know, nothing.
Me watching all the Oscars contenders for the 2022 Oscars, and I'm like, not as good as Princess and the Pauper, but close
oh my God,
second.
I need to log it in my letterbox.
You're too hot for a letterboxd, Kaylynne.
That's so not true. That's simply not true.
I say having one.
Exactly. Only hot bitches. Well, okay, hot bitches.
Don't say only.
Yeah, I'm hot bitches and film bros. Gremlin film bros have letterboxed, but when the girlies have a letterboxed, it's fine.
Different.
It's different. It's a different experience. Okay, Skyler has disclosed to me that she purchased the TikTok viral pink sauce.
My curiosity got the best of me, frankly. I'm just like, it's right there. It's on the shelf. I'm at Walmart. Why not? You know,
And this is I was very scared at first, to be honest. But it is the shelf stable, is it FDA approved at this point? Who knows? But it's been through. It's not just a lady making it out of her house. So
putting it in people's mailboxes.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give that a smell for me.
There's definitely ranch in there. We're doing a little taste test. Did we say that? I don't remember. Why is it so viscous? Wait.
It's like Pepto-Bismol pink too. All right, got your tot.
Okay, yeah, we have little tater tots. Oh my God. I feel like it's just gonna be ranch. Do we need to cheers? Cheers. it's very ranch heavy, but it's not like good ranch. It's like the like sour ranch.
It's sweet.
Yeah.
And spicy.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. What is this ingredient list? Wait.
Dragon fruit.
Dragon fruit puree, canola oil, coconut cream, water, sugar.
Coconut cream? What the?
Distilled white vinegar, garlic, maltodextrin, ranch flavor. I fucking knew it. I mean, of course, like that's not a hard thing to guess. Colored with titanium dioxide, preserved with sodium benzoate. Okay.
I don't know about this one,
citric
Chief.
acid. Contains coconut. Yeah, not my favorite. Definitely not my favorite. No Chick-fil-A sauce.
Unfortunately. I wish there was a sauce to compete with Chick-fil-A sauce.
It's so fucking good. The Polynesian sauce.
Anyway.
Yeah.
How are we even supposed to... Okay.
Anyway. Today we are discussing...
Oh, I have a segue.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So, actually, when we were watching Barbie Mermaidia, one of the things that I was stressing out about, so almost every Barbie movie features, like, female friendship in some capacity, right? But for the two leads in Barbie Mermaidia were not acting like the friends that they had written in any other Barbie movie. They were written to be gay. And every time they were on screen, I was like, come on, gay. And then they would, like, have a moment where I'm just like, oh my God, are they actually going to be gay?
They hold hands.
And they're like...
And they, like, hold eye contact, and it's like...
It's enemies to lovers. It's fantastic. Oh, one-sided enemies to lovers. Barbie never has any beef with anybody. And then in the end, shocker, they don't end up together.
Yeah.
But you know what I would have probably done? I probably would have read some Barbie Mermaidia fan fiction to ease that hole in my heart. And that's what we're talking about today.
Oh my
fan
God.
Fiction.
That was so good. That was so good. This is a topic very near and dear.
Stupid near and dear to us.
To our
So,
hearts.
we said way back when, during the Chronic Crushes episode, we were talking about how, like, we were very romantic kids and we needed, like, media to try to, you know, fill that gap in our hearts. Fan fiction was the easiest method to do so. Because, like, what's easier? You actually going to, like, your local library, your school's library, and reading, like, a full-length, like, YA, like, romance novel? At the time, they were so bad.
Yeah.
I say that like they're any good, but there's more of them now. Book Talk has made, like, a YA romance renaissance, basically. So you sit down, you read a whole full-length novel, which I did, or you could read, like, snippets online on your phone. So you just scroll through your phone reading
I was
fan
on my little
fiction.
iPod Touch on Wattpad reading
So it's more
little
accessible
yes,
than that.
Yes,
so fan fiction
totally.
has raised me. That's why I'm so normal today.
What fandoms were you a part of? Like what were you into?
Fuck. This is not...
I was into British YouTubers.
Okay, that's not that bad. That's not that bad.
Okay. I read so much Dan and Phil, like, fan fiction. If anyone remembers, like, the Harry's twins, I was obsessed. That was kind of my realm. I wasn't really into the, like, world type. Like I wasn't into Harry Potter fan fiction. I wasn't into, like, Star Wars. Like, I was just so in my, like, British YouTuber phase.
And I'll actually get into that. Like, why that's, like, preferable to a lot of, like, readers and how, like, a lot of franchises will mold themselves to be more down to earth for easy readers. And I'll get into my explanation. I have to, like, feel like I have to explain myself why I'm about to say what I'm saying.
True off my chest.
So, Glee. Kurt and Blaine only.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in Britannia. I wasn't interested in Finchel. I wasn't interested in any other ship that Glee had to offer because in my eyes, they were all so problematic because they were. But, and I'll definitely get into it later, but, like, the reason I got so heavily into Glee was because, so, I thought Glee was so bad that any fan fiction would be better than it. So that's why I consumed so much of it. Because as a kid, I was like, I love Harry Potter, but I didn't like reading Harry Potter fan fiction because I'm like, this isn't as good as the fucking J.K. Rowling books. And so I'm just like, I'm not interested. But Glee, I was like, no, tell me more about, like, an AU where these two characters are treated with the respect they deserve. So I think the entry for fan fiction for me is, like, it all depends on the world. Are you reading fan fiction right now?
Me? No, but I am reading. I'm like, I kind of my fan fiction era was probably like 2012 to like, well, no, probably like 2011 to like 2014, maybe 2015. That was kind of like when I was in the depths of it. But I am reading, but I love a good like cute little romance novel. Like right now I'm reading this book. I'm pretty sure it's called like Chemistry of Love. And it's about this like makeup scientist who is like in love with her boss. And what?
Can you show me a cover of what you're talking about?
Wait, that.
Oh, okay. No, it's very similar in title to a repackaged Raylo fanfiction. It's like the Algorithm of Love or something.
Oh, yeah. No, this is I was about to say this is a published book. There are many published fanfictions.
The Love Hypothesis.
Oh. No, this is called The Chemistry of Love. It like just got published this month. But yeah,
so you're like on top of it.
It's about, well, I like had it I don't know, Kindle was doing this thing. I read on my iPad because
iPad baby.
I know so many people, they're like, I don't understand how you can read on like a Kindle or whatever. Like I love the feeling of a book. For whatever reason, like physical books overwhelm me because I think I focus so much on like finishing it and getting through the pages. So like actually seeing how thick the book is can overwhelm me. But when it's like on an iPad, one, it brings me back to my fucking Wattpad days where I'm like, oh, I'm just like on my little iPad reading my fan fiction. So it's easier for me to get through a book on my iPad than like an actual physical book, which I know a lot of people are the opposite. But anyway, The Chemistry of Love. Yeah, it's literally like a little romance novel about a makeup chemist. She's in love with her boss. But then her boss is he gets engaged, and then his brother, who is like the CEO of the company, who's like incredibly handsome, gets like together with her, and he's like, because basically the girl that like her boss was engaged to is like trying to take over the company and like is just in it for the money or whatever, so he doesn't want them to get married. So he's like, this is what's gonna happen. My brother is so jealous of me, and he wants everything I want, because the girl he's going to marry is his ex.
What the hell?
Who he stole. And so he's like, we're going to pretend to date.
Oh my God.
To make my brother jealous.
Oh my God.
And then he's going to want you. And then you guys will fall in love. And then the company won't be ruined. And everything will be perfect. But of course, they're going to fall in love.
We're definitely going to get into this about like fan fiction itself, like bleeding into more popular, like actual movies and TV shows and whatnot. But I think like Bridgerton is like the biggest example of like how fan fiction tropes like will bleed into romance novel tropes, which will then bleed into adaptations of those romance novels. So like what you're saying, like we'll pretend to be together, but then we'll fall in love for real. That was season 1 of Bridgerton. Season 2 is enemies to lovers. Season 3 is gonna be like, I think, childhood friends, like misunderstanding, miscommunication to lovers. Yeah, so I am reading fanfiction right now. I'm in my fanfiction renaissance, and I'm so happy to announce because it's been a couple episodes since I've brought it up, and it's felt empty without it.
Oh my God, what are you reading?
Heartstopper.
Wait, I didn't know this.
And again, like the reason I'm so into Heartstopper fic right now is because Heartstopper is like already a slice of life story. So like slice of life stories fit in really well to like very comfy, cozy, small, bite-sized little fanfiction-esque stories. So I don't feel like anything is changing. It just feels like I'm getting more Heartstopper, which is what I want until season 2 drops. For the love of Christ, Netflix, I'm on my knees. Tell us when season 2 is coming out. I need to like take a sick day. Like I'm not even fucking with you. Like I need to take a moment. They're gonna announce season 2 and I'm in like the shower. I swear to God, they're gonna drop the trailer when I'm asleep. And it's gonna be my villain origin story.
It's so good, guys. Like, it's so good. You don't understand.
That's why I want more of it.
Yeah. Well, and that's like the purpose of fan fiction, right? Is to like expand upon this world that you enjoy, or characters that you enjoy, or like fill the gaps that you wish would have happened in the actual media. So why don't we get into it? Will you tell us the terminology?
Yeah, so just like well, I'm not going to assume that anyone knows everything, so let's just go into some quick terms. So canon just means the source material. So if something is canon, that means that it's confirmed, it was in the show, movie, whatever, like it's part of the world building. Flip side, non-canon is not the source material. Headcanon is something that you think aligns with canon, but it isn't actually proven by anyone. Like, you headcanon that this character's, like, mom died, because it makes sense, right? And, like, that's how you see the character, but, like, the creator hasn't come out and been like, actually, yes, their mom is dead, but that's just something that you, in your head, is canon. It hasn't been
confirmed or denied.
Yeah.
Okay.
And fanon is what happens when everyone in one fan base has the same headcanon. So, like, fanon is something the fan base at large accepts as canon, but isn't actually supported in the work, which I think is incredibly interesting, because, like, if you have a fandom that's been around for a very long time, like, sometimes fandom will just agree on something so long that it will then bleed into the actual piece of work itself. If it's enough of an insistent idea that, like, sometimes the creators will, like, they're not supposed to read fan fiction. Actually, it's like a really big deal that, like, if you work in a creative, like if you work in a TV show or like a long form, whatever, you are, like, in your contract not supposed to seek out fan fiction, because you're not supposed to let fan works influence the actual show itself, because otherwise you, like, people could get sued, or like it's a big mess. But sometimes, like, especially like fandoms like Star Trek that have been going on for so long, that, like, when a fandom has an idea about, like, what they think the, like, someone's home planet is like, the next reboot in, like, a couple or so years, the people that were involved in that fandom now might have a hand in the show. So things that are fanoned for a long time will sometimes integrate themselves back into the actual show, and that's the power of fandom, baby. Smut is just porn. Smut is just, yeah, it's explicitly written word porn, sometimes called a lemon if you're, like, old and you still tag your things as lemon because of the good old days. And ship is just short for a relationship, a couple that you like. Yeah, so it's like, stop sinking holes in my ship. It's like, stop making fun of this couple that I like. The ship wars are, you know, like, I think so-and-so belongs with this person. Well, I think so-and-so belongs in this person. And then, like, Tumblr fights galore. But anyway, that's some quick terminology. Let's go into, because fanfiction is not a new problem. It's older than the internet.
Yeah.
Guys, it's as old as, like, the written word.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to get into the history, which we were talking earlier. We both kind of went places with this, like, prompt that we weren't really expecting to go. And I knew I kind of wanted to do, like, the history of fan fiction, but I didn't truly realize, like, just how much there is until I, like, started researching it, and it's really interesting. So I had, like, two main sources that I used. Honestly, the main one was actually another podcast episode. It is called Talkin' Fanfic. That's the podcast, and the episode is Fanfiction History with the Fanfic Maverick Podcast Part 1. It is, like, 2.5 hours, so I only listened to, like, half of it. But lots of good information in there. And then there was also an Atlantic article called Fanfiction Was Just as Sexual in the 1700s as it is today. And there's a quote from that says, almost as soon as people started writing modern novels, readers began to find ways to continue the adventures of their favorite characters and share those stories with other enthusiasts. So this is, like, not a new concept. Obviously, like, the terminology of, like, fan fiction is newer. But this is, like, arguably fanfic, and also kind of while doing this research, I was like, okay, what is the difference between, like, an adaptation or, like, deriving an idea from another piece of work and, like, fan fiction? So the first couple examples, like, they're not really fan fiction, but it's kind of fun to, like, think about it like that. So in 2100 BC, the Epic of Gilgamesh is, like, estimated to have been around then, which was greatly inspired by, like, Mesopotamian mythology. So you could kind of argue that, like, that was an expansion of the, like, mythology that was already around during that time. And Dante's The Divine Comedy, like, Bible fan fiction, ? And then same with Paradise, oh my god, Paradise Lost, like, more Bible fan fiction. Obviously it's not, like, fan fiction, but, like, it's inspired by the works.
Yeah, same. What I was saying about, like, fanon being accepted into the main canon is, like, Dante's Inferno and Paradise Lost are two things that, like, actual religious people will cite as, like, religious texts, and people are like, that's Bible fanfic, that is not the Bible. But it's been around the same circles as the Bible for so long that some people are like, when they quote something, they're like, think it's from the Bible, but it's from Paradise Lost. It's like explaining hell, but it's explaining hell from like Dante's Inferno.
Yes. Yeah. Which I like, I don't know, had never really considered like fan fiction in that context. And I was like, oh, wait, that's so interesting. And then did you know, I did not know this, but Romeo and Juliet is a fan fiction.
Pardon?
Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet is based on a poem, The Tragical History of Romeus and Juliet, by Arthur Brooke, which was published in 1562, and then Romeo and Juliet came out in 1597. Like, it's literally fan fiction of this poem.
William.
I know.
William Shakespeare's for the girlies.
And so that's just like kind of what was happening like really early on. But like fan fiction kind of like as we know it, actually got its start in the 18th century, interestingly enough. And most recognizably after Gulliver's Travels was published, which was in 1726. There was actually etcher something. I can't remember the word. I should have written it down. But it was like this artist who he like etched drawings and stuff. And he made this like etching of Gulliver like getting an enema by like the little small people.
Oh my god.
And it was literally like direct fan art because like that didn't fucking happen in Gulliver's Travels, but someone is taking this work and they are creating art with the characters within the world of like something that
Gulliver's
didn't
Travels?
happen.
Good. What would it look like if Gulliver had something shoved up his ass?
Literally, and you can see he's like behind a curtain kind of, but you can see his little butt cheeks.
Oh,
and
Jesus Christ.
And they have the people like putting, it's like a hose or something.
Bitches be horny.
And people wrote like fan fiction expanding on the world too during that time. So that's kind of like the oldest like example of what we would consider like modern fan art, fan fiction, and like fandom in general. And then in 1740, Samuel Richardson published a novel called Pamela, and it was about a maid who was like indentured to her like sexy boss. And nothing explicit happened in the original novel, but because that tension was there, people needed to like fill that gap. So they literally wrote like fan fiction on this novel from 1740 where like the maid and her boss like end up getting together. And a man named Henry Fielding wrote a direct fan fiction called Shamala? Shamala?
Nice.
Where Pamela and her mother like plan to like entrap him and like steal his wealth with her like sexuality. And there's also a full-length novel where they do a gender swap.
Oh my god!
Where it's Pamela's brother, who's resisting the seduction of, like, the older land-owning lady who's, like, the original guy's sister. So they do, like, a full gender swap on it, and it's, like, a full fucking novel. So from 1740, we're gonna skip ahead to the 1960s.
Big jump, but
yeah,
I'm with you.
Big jump. But just realize during that time, like, fan fiction of, like, modern works was probably happening during that time. I imagine there was, like, so much fan fiction in
like diaries,
personal
journals.
Exactly.
Their family, like when they died, they looked at them and they were like, no, for her sake and for her dignity we shall burn these.
So then in the 1960s, obviously this was a time of kind of like sexual liberalization.
Liberation or liberalization?
Liberation. I was reading a quote. I'll just read the quote. Modern fanfiction. I was trying to make it my own, and it doesn't work.
I'm inventing a word. How fanficky of you. I fanfic them.
Well, the liberalization's in the quote, but I was not using it correctly, so you're so right. But modern fanfiction's version of this exploration comes at a time when liberalization around sexual preferences, practices, and identities likewise make it useful for auditioning socially costly decisions and roles in less risky environments than real life.
Yeah.
So obviously in the 1960s, like Star Trek was fucking huge. And so many people were writing like Kirk and Spock romances.
As they should.
And kind of like exploring that idea of like homosexuality being represented in media, which is like obviously something that wasn't really happening in the
Star
1960s.
Trek had to like pull teeth to get the first interracial kiss on TV.
Yeah.
You think they were going to do gay? The network would have been burnt down. Yeah. But fan fiction, you could easily do that in the safety and comfort of like not airing it on television.
Yes, yeah. Well, and so many of those fans, and it's interesting how popular that is because it really like shows how so many of those so much of the fandom like really felt like the tension between those characters and kind of wanted to like fill in between, you know, between the lines. And then also during that time, obviously this is like pre-internet. So the way that people would actually, I'm just going to say women, because like fan fiction and kind of fandom in general is predominantly like a female run movement.
Queer accepting space.
Yes, exactly. And they would like make these zines full of like fan fiction and fan art and stuff like that. And they would like give them away at conventions and stuff. And this was something that like so many people loved consuming, and it just kind of like grew from there. And I think especially like just real quickly, like a reason why so many women are, I think, attracted to fan fiction, and specifically like romance fan fiction and like ships and things like that, is because like, well, and specifically like smut work is because obviously like the porn industry is so exploitive and like can be abusive towards women and just like not meant for women's consumption. Like it's just never created for women's consumption. And like there's none of that like relationship building that I think for a lot of women is like so important.
Integral to the romance aspect of it. Yes.
So then like written smut or romance novels are like so much more enjoyable, especially when you're like expanding across like relationships and worlds that you're already familiar with, that you already have like that familiarity with. And where like those tensions are already existing. So then in the 1980s and 90s comes like the invention of the computer. And in the beginning, obviously like people didn't really have like household computers. So mostly like college students or even professors who had access to computers through like their institutions, they would use a platform called Usenet. And it was basically like a giant forum where people would post articles, have discussions. It was kind of like a Reddit type thing. And there were like message boards, and you could like join different groups that you were interested in and kind of like build community through there. And fan fiction and fandom like really grew on that platform. And then in the late 90s and early 2000s, household computers became like much more accessible and popular. And it allowed greater access to like those online communities. So in the 90s and 2000s, like this is where fandom is becoming much more accessible to like the average person. And I think a lot of times people like don't know it's there, like, or at least previously like didn't really know it was there unless they were seeking it out.
Yeah. And then you saw like a convention and you could just like point and laugh at like how crazy these Star Wars nerds are. They're dressing up as their favorite character in public. Weird, huh?
Well, but then once it becomes like more accessible, you have like the fandoms are just like growing exponentially. So then in 1998, fanfiction.net was created. And this was like one of the first websites that was like dedicated to fan fiction. And there were like certain platforms before that like lots of fan fiction like circulated on, but like obviously fanfiction.net, like you're only going there for one reason.
Yeah.
And this was also the first like automated fan fiction site, which was huge because creators or fans could just like kind of post updates to their stories or like edits or whatever, and they can like upload that themselves in kind of like the way that we would do on like social media now. Whereas previously, if you wanted to make an edit or you wanted to like upload a new chapter or you wanted to do anything, you would have to get in contact or like email the specific admin? The specific person who was like doing the programming of the site, and then they would have to go in and like code it and all that. So it was huge that this was automated, because obviously like previously you would have delays of like days or weeks of getting these updates and these edits, where now like creators and fans, it's kind of like a free-for-all in that way. And previous to this as well, fanfiction sites were typically run by like a specific person or group. So like you would have sites dedicated to like Star Trek or to X-Files or something like that, but there wasn't really a site where you could just go and find like
whatever,
any and all fan fiction. So this was huge too, because there was like a search bar where you could just kind of search what you were looking for, and then it would like populate. Whereas before there would be like a menu that you can navigate to, and you can actually like search exactly what you're looking for. And in 2002, fanfiction.net started doing widespread bans of content. They started removing all Anne Rice content. We were talking about this. We were talking about this before we started recording. But Anne Rice, she wrote, oh my God, the fucking vampire.
Interview with a Vampire.
Yes, Interview with a Vampire. And she is like publicly and adamantly like against all fan fiction, and like specifically fan fiction of like her work. Like she doesn't find it enjoyable at all. She thinks it's like rude, and
she thinks it's theft.
Yes.
And like she was not alone in this. Like the reason that I think people hog on fanfiction.net for being like buggy and, you know, sometimes like out of date, and sometimes I just want to like shake the young ones and just be like, you weren't there. Like there was a time when like you could get sued, like threatened, like a defamation suit by like a creator of your work, because they're like, you do not have the rights to own any of my characters. Take this down. Like you're disrespecting me and my entire and like you can tell sometimes even now, like I go in AO3, which is like Archive of Our Own, the triple O. And sometimes like you can tell when an author has been through that and they're older, because they'll put like, I do not own the rights to any of these characters in the bot. You don't have to do that anymore, because now like fair use is like you're transformative, you're transforming the work into your own whatever. It's obviously fan content at that point, but you can tell like some people are just so careful because they remember it was so treacherous to write and sometimes consume fan fiction, because authors were like, this is my work, like you're cheapening my world, you don't get it. And it's funny that you even mentioned Interview with the Vampire with Anne Rice, because they rebooted Interview with the Vampire, and it's canonically in the show the most popular gay ship on fanfiction. And I'm just like, Anne Rice, you cheeky bitch, we got you in the end. Like, she was so against the idea that like her two main people were like would be explicitly gay, and then in the show they fuck, and I'm just like, and interesting. But so fanfiction.net started doing widespread bans of like any Anne Rice content or Anne Rice like based content, because otherwise their site would get taken down and it would ruin it for everybody.
Yes, and they also started doing widespread bans of explicit content. So this is kind of when the like citrus rating system came into effect. Do you kind of want to explain what that is?
So you had kind of, I don't know, like it super well, because this was a little bit before my time, but basically like if you wanted to include explicitly written stuff in your work, you couldn't tag it as such, but you still couldn't like spring it on people, because like it's irresponsible to tag things incorrectly, especially like depending on like the different ages. I think, you know, not that it's heavily enforced or anything, like fanfiction.net and AO3 are like, are you above 18? You just be like, yes. But at the time they're just like, okay, if it's smut, you have to tag it as smut, but if you tag it as smut, then it will get taken down. So that's when the citrus rating system, like you said, so if it was smut, it was a lemon was like the most sour, and then it kind of like went from there. And like other like,
I think there was like lime and grapefruit.
It was just like, if you knew, you knew. You just kind of had to deal around like the code words. It's kind of like how on TikTok you have to say unalive instead of died, because then TikTok will take your video down or like not, or like demonetize it or something. You have to use like SA, because you can't say sexual assault. Like it's the same vibe. Like you need to use code words in order for the algorithm to not get you taken down. And so a lot of people are like, what is a lemon? And I'm like, oh. Because now we don't have to do that. Now, like, that tagging system is out of... You can just say, like, this is smut, this is explicit. On AO3, you can separate it by, like, rating system. So if you want it to be explicit, mature, everyone, rated E for everyone, you can. But you don't have to tag it as lemon anymore. But that was just kind of, like, a period of time when, like, people, like... Smut had to go into hiding.
Yes. Yeah. And so during this time, because of all these bans, a lot of people moved over from fanfiction.net to LiveJournal.
Yep.
Because that was where they could like freely express themselves without getting taken down from the site. So there was kind of a shift from fanfiction.net.
But she was the OG. And
yes.
we respect her for it.
Yeah. And then in 2005, Doctor Who got rebooted.
Dear Christ.
And after the first season, David Tennant became the 10th Doctor.
So he did.
And he was the Doctor for a couple of years.
He was the longest Doctor they had, at least in the modern reiteration. He did not want to give up. As comparatively, the 9th Doctor, again, was only around for one season.
Yeah.
And so they kind of figured that it would go on kind of that way, like after 1 or 2 seasons, like the Doctor would regenerate, bring forth someone else. But no, David Tennant was like, no, I want to keep doing this forever. And even like his last words to the Doctor was like, I don't want to go.
Yeah, he was the Doctor for so long, and I would say he's arguably one of the most recognizable.
Yeah, even
doctors.
Today, you look at David Tennant, you're like, oh my God, isn't that Doctor Who?
Yes,
like, and he's proud of it too. He's back. He's the Doctor again.
Wait, really?
At least
I've not been keeping up. I don't know.
At least for the Christmas special, he is like he made a cameo.
I love
to
that.
usher forth like the new era.
That's so interesting. Well, and I'm not like super. I did watch a little bit of Doctor Who when I was a kid, just because my dad was really into it, and I was like, I want to bond with you, and so I started watching Doctor Who. So I'm not super familiar with like all of the doctors and stuff, but like previously a lot of the doctors were kind of like older, and like they weren't quite as like charming and like funny the way that like David Tennant is.
Yeah, actually, this is a real criticism that like, because Doctor Who has been a TV show since the 60s.
Yeah,
this is like a real criticism that like fans of old Who have.
Oh,
is because it used to be very much like the Doctor and his companion. It was less like his girlfriend and more of like his niece. Sometimes it actually was his niece, or like it would be like an old man teaching you like about like the history of Britain, because it's always Britain, or like an alien, but it would be like quirky older man takes younger youth around and like teaches them about like whatever and entertains them. And around 2005, the first companion was Rose Tyler, who I still read Rose Doctor Fanfiction. Whatever. So starting with 2005, it was that the new Who now is a shift where every companion has some sort of romantic implication with the Doctor. So it was so like old
was
fans.
Rose the blonde one?
Yes.
Okay.
She was the love interest for the 9th Doctor, and then she was the love interest for the 10th Doctor. When she had to leave, they replaced him with another like woman that was in love with the David Tennant. It's always just been like a theme. They haven't always ended up together or anything. In fact, like due to the nature of the show, the Doctor can't really end up with anyone. But romance, like the Doctor's love life now became like a central theme with the reboot, which was not even a thing. So I think 2005, the show was like written for like a fan fiction vibe in mind, because then it was way more romance based than the old show had ever been.
There was a shift.
Yeah.
There was a shift.
You're like, I don't know much about Doctor Who, and I'm like, and I
well, like this was kind of one of the first like he, you know, he's like charming and like quirky and handsome
and way like, younger, and the companions were also like
comparable in age. So of course this prompted so much fucking fan fiction, and this alongside, I think it's really interesting because I think that the rise of fan fiction really truly happened in like the early 2000s to like, I mean obviously fan fiction's still a thing, but like early 2000s to like 2012 or whatever was kind of like the ramping up and where it really started getting like general circulation.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. And so Doctor Who was a huge part of this because it had such a huge fandom. And I think the reboot of Doctor Who with David Tennant, coupled with the like accessibility of home computers and like websites and
the BBC in general.
Yeah.
As really, media became global.
Yes. All of those elements really like facilitated fan fiction becoming so widespread. So then in 2006, Wattpad launched.
Psychic damage.
which I was a Wattpad user.
We hated you.
Wattpad and Tumblr were like the only sites that I got fan fiction from. I honestly didn't even know about like I'm such a fake. I'm sorry guys. I didn't even know about like fanfiction.net until like this episode.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know. I just knew Wattpad and Tumblr. Like those were my things.
Tumblr was my jump off spot too. Mine was AO3 just because like the tagging system was way more accessible, and I think fanfiction.net site design, at least the last time I was on it, was definitely still like stuck in that early 2000s like dial-up internet, whatever. I'm sure they've improved. And also just like the vibes at Archive of Our Own were way more like, the tagging system was way better, so you didn't have to accidentally like read something you didn't want to read because the author didn't tag it properly. Like everyone at AO3 is way more down to like tagging everything and telling you what their actual story is going to be about, so you don't like accidentally read something you're like, hey, you didn't tell me this, your breeding kink was in this one.
Well, I think because I was reading like YouTuber fan fiction and stuff, it wasn't really on those larger sites that were more targeting like kind of like older audiences, and
you got
more
that tween age cred.
Exactly, and that's kind of where like we would go, like Wattpad and Tumblr was kind of like for that. So in 2006 Wattpad launched, and then 2007 Tumblr launched,
and Skyler would never be the same.
And in 2007 the first iPhone was released. So again, like
prepare for trouble and make it double.
all of these elements, I think, like and like technological advancements really worked to like push fan fiction and fandom to like where it is. And then in 2010 Sherlock aired, and Christ. In 2010 One Direction was formed.
You're really just like shooting me with bullets from a gun.
Yes.
Doctor Who, boom, Sherlock, boom, One Direction, boom, boom, Tumblr, and I'm like, to the scalp.
I don't know if it was just because that was kind of the era that like I was really into fan fiction during, but to me it really feels like those moments, like the Doctor Who reboot, the iPhone release, or Sherlock airing, and One Direction, like those grasped such large audiences that like it was just like such a cultural moment. You had to be there.
The thought that 3 fandoms were so large on Tumblr that one giant galaxy-brained individual went, why can't we just combine one into a supernatural Doctor Who Sherlock fandom, Super Who-lock?
Yeah.
And me. I thought that was the most brilliant thing anyone had ever done.
Well, and that was so interesting too, was because you had all of these different shows, and like they all kind of had their like fantasy elements to them, or like science fiction elements to them, but like all of those separate like shows being combined into one fandom and creating content where like worlds collide, where
it was the first like Endgame. It was the first like, oh my god, they're meeting.
Yeah, and I don't know, I just think that's such a cool like cultural moment where like you have such a huge fandom of like all of these different things coming together to like create one, and to create all of this content that is like incorporating elements from all of these different shows. It's just so interesting. So of course in 2010, I think this was really, and probably a little bit earlier, but I think 2010, you can pretty solidly say that like everyone had either a laptop or a smartphone during that time, making the online worlds of fandom and fan fiction accessible to like basically every household in like the US, Canada, UK, and like other areas, of course. So that, I think all of that has kind of led us to where we are today. And of course more fandoms and fan fiction is like still being created. But I think
obviously.
But I think like that was really the time, the like 2000 to like 2010 was the time of like this mass growth occurring.
Yeah. You had to be there. And by that, I mean, you shouldn't have ever been there. It was awful. But yeah, I kind of want to get into like fan fiction culture, like as it stands right now. Just kind of how, cause it's thriving, probably more thrivey than it has been. It's getting it's like big renaissance, frankly. So like fan fiction, like by its very nature, is gluttonous. Like we were talking about earlier, it's just like fans of whatever property. They see something they would like to see more of, but the work itself is lacking, so they just take matters into their own hands. So yeah, it's just shameless pandering to the heart, which makes it like junk food to read. And so like 90% of fan fiction follows the same formulaic plots because this is supposed to be easy to read bits of books. Like we aren't reinventing the wheel here. And fan fiction is character and emotionally beat driven by design. Like some have plot, we will definitely get into that. But like remember, the reason fan fiction exists is to satisfy, oh my god, I can't talk. Satisfy the needs of readers looking for more from their favorite book, TV show, boy band, etc. So if someone is writing like Game of Thrones fan fiction, right, they're usually not trying to write the last book like George R.R. Martin would, with like these big plots and political upheaval and like knee-deep lore. They'll focus on their favorite characters having moments to themselves, mostly having sex, running away together, easier, smaller to digest pieces that put the heavy plot on the back burner. So fan fiction is character based because that's why we're here. If you wanted more plot, you would just wait for the next book. But you're obviously attached to the characters, so you just want to see what the characters are doing, where the characters will go next. And so to make it easier for everyone, the most popular genre of fan fiction is AU, or alternative universe. So the more complicated that the original work is, the more difficult it is to write fan fiction around that to make it fit like into that world. So they'll like take these characters and put them into a more manageable, easier world to like write and to read. Like Lord of the Rings AU, where they're all in college, or Frodo's a barista and Samwise Gamgee is a baker, or like One Direction in like a fantasy world where Harry Styles is a wizard and like Zayn Malik is a bard. Like it's easier to manage, and it also makes it like a fun creativity exercise for you because you get to imagine like your favorite people, your favorite characters in like a brand new setting that they've never been before. So it's easier to write, to read. Plus it makes it more exciting for your audience. Like you can only read so many Harry Potter fan fictions where it's like studying for my owls in the halls of Hogwarts and then we'll go to Hogsmeade. It's like, we get it. Or like One Direction fan fiction where like Niall Horan is like, paparazzi, when will like after a while you're like, we get it.
Yeah.
Like we get the usual stuff. And so it's nice to kind of like break up and like use your imagination to see what different like universes that your favorite characters could like thrive in. And it also can be really helpful, AUs can be, if there's a lot of tragedy in the canon storyline, or if your favorite character died. Like it's nice to imagine a universe where they're all comfy and cozy and taken care of and like relaxed and nobody dies. Like it can be kind of funny, like, or cringe to be like Five Nights at Freddy fan fiction where like everyone is happy and thriving and they're all in like a high school art class. You're like, this is cringy. But like for them, it's just like, no, it's all my favorite characters and none of that crazy sad stuff. Like Attack on Titan AU, where again like they're like in a competition to who can make the best like pizza. Who will win, Levi or Aaron Yeager? But it's fun for them because it can be like a relaxing bit to like make their brains be like, no, finally a world where like my favorite characters aren't like screaming and sad and traumatized. Everyone is happy. AUs can also increase like the soulmate feeling of like your favorite couple. If the bottom line is in every universe, in every circumstance, your favorite couple will still fall in love. Like they'll find each other in any world. Like that's if you're
so cute.
Yeah, if you're really deep into one ship and you keep like looking at AUs where like no matter what they'll end up together, it can definitely like it'll give you that squee factor. And this is what I explained myself of how I got into fan fiction in the first place was Glee. So here's my thoughts on Glee, frankly. So Glee started off as like a satirical, obnoxious, like early 2000s mean comedy, but then they got high off their own fumes because they had like one really good storyline about Kurt coming out to his dad, and they got high off their own praise. So then they felt the need to combine their like over the top like operatic drama with sincere attempts at like serious topics and like serious characters. So my teenage heart got viscerally emotionally attached to Kurt and Blaine, and I got heartbroken every week seeing what like I thought was like character assassination or like the world's most like stupid decisions being put to TV. I would tune in every week to scream or yell or squee when they finally got something right. Like they literally had me by the balls and like were just dragging me around.
Have you told the story of when you broke your couch watching Glee? I don't think you have.
No, I haven't. Fuck me. No, I was so into. So there is. I don't even know the exact episode too. So Kurt and Blaine had broken up that season, and it was a wedding. It was a Valentine's Day episode, and suddenly you see that two people are making out in the back of a car, and you see Kurt's head pop up. And at the time, I froze because I'm just like, oh no, what are they gonna do? And then suddenly Blaine's head pops into frame, and I literally jumped. Like, I was sitting down kind of on the couch, kind of like I am. I jumped up so high, screamed, and like covered my mouth with my hands, fell backwards, and you hear this loud crack. And my mom goes, she pauses, she goes, what the fuck was that? I had broken the foundations of my couch because I was so shocked that Kurt and Blaine got back together. Oh my god, it was Glee was literally designed to like entrap dramatic hormone-ridden teenagers. Yeah. Like, everything about it. It was a jukebox musical. It was a bloodbath. So like every week the Glee fandom would write fix it fix. So like AUs were like bad decisions that the show writers gave them never happened. So fanfiction became a way of like rewriting the episodes that we thought were bad, or like taking the potential of the show that we thought wasn't being lived up to and just writing like fix it fanfiction. So that's how I got into it, because I thought that the bar was so low. Again, like I said, like Glee was so whack that like every fanfiction was better than the original source material. And I was so deep into it. So yeah, sometimes like we have all this AU, right? Sometimes we have emotionally attached writers sitting down, spending hours, months, sometimes years of their lives writing stories about their favorite ship or show or boy band or whatever. And sometimes what happens, they get so deep into like their own original like AU, that it's essentially just totally divorced from the original source material and manifests into its own original novel. Like, some people driven by the love of like their own fan base will write George R.R. Martin level plot, lore, invent an entire world for these characters to exist in, like twists and turns, like keep you on the edge of your well-written stuff that can be over 500,000 words long. There is a Super Smash Brothers fanfiction out there with more words than the Bible. Did you read?
No.
How many words do you think is in a Super Smash Brothers fanfiction? Nintendo. Give me a word count.
Oh my god. I don't know, like 100,000.
7,296,586 words. It is the longest piece of literature ever recorded by man.
What?
Yeah.
What could possibly happen? What?
Yeah. People are insane. With love. And like, I was going to say, All the Other Ghosts is a Klain AU where the Glee cast is superheroes. All of the Glee cast has superpowers, and they're all in New York. And it is one of the most like in-depth exploration of like superpowers, corrupting power, humanity that I have ever read in my life. And it is a Glee fan fiction where the Glee cast have superpowers. But at that point, it's just so different from where we started that like you might as well just write your own thing.
Yeah. And
if you're an author who's written thousands of words about like a complicated AU so far removed from that source material with like already pre-established millions of readers, why don't you just change the names and publish it under a different title and with a different whatever? Okay, so famously, I feel like everyone knows this, but if you don't, 50 Shades of Grey is quite famously a repackaged Twilight fanfiction where someone was like, ooh, Edward and Bella, but what if in my AU, Edward is like a rich CEO and Bella is just his hot new secretary, and then they fall in love with BDSM ? The BDSM is horrendously written, by the way. I do not endorse any of this. But that's what happened. It was different enough that she was able to change the names and repackage it. After is another.
Did you read After?
No, but I didn't, but I had people that I went to see the movie with who did read it genuinely, and we saw it in theaters, and I had to sit there and pretend like I couldn't make fun of it. They would get mad at me. They were genuinely fans of After. I couldn't make fun of it, Kaylynne. I paid money to see After in theaters.
That's horrible. I'm so sorry.
But After was a Wattpad original that turned into
it was a Harry Styles fanfiction.
Actual published book. It was not only the Harry Styles, it was One Direction College AU. Where instead of, and the name changing, like, okay, Edward to Christian, that's a good name change. Bella to Anastasia, good name change. Harry Styles to Hardin Scott is a horrific name change. Zayn to Zed, I'm gonna kill you with my bare hands. The movie, the guy that they got to play Hardin Scott is doing a Harry Styles voice impression, and they gave him Harry Styles' tattoos. Like, he has a he has a butterfly tattoo on his chest. He has like an anchor on his arm. Like, he has Harry Styles' sleeves and chest tattoo. They were not being subtle about what the point of this whole thing was. But that was After.
I did read After.
Thoughts?
I only read the first one. There's like 3. There's like 3 of them.
It was like after we met, after we collided.
Yeah.
Happily
like
ever, after happily ever.
I read it, so I read it while it was on Wattpad. I read it published book. I was too young to read. So After is like, it's a smut. Like,
heavy smut.
Fanfic. And it's also like abusive relationship. Like, it's not good.
It is horrifically abusive.
Their relationship is not good, like, in any way. And I was literally, oh my god, I had to have been 12 or 13, like, reading fucking After, like, fan fiction. But I think because I was just, like, so hormonal and, like...
animalistic.
Yes, yeah. That, like, I would take whatever I could get. And it was, like, what Wattpad had like pushed because it was so popular.
Yeah.
And I think I was kind of like, what the fuck is up with this book that it is like this popular? And then I like started reading it and I couldn't stop. I couldn't put it down. But now looking back, I'm like, holy shit, why did... Because at the time I was like, because if you don't know, After, it's very like, he Hardin Scott or whatever is
not Harry Styles.
is like this bad boy who like hates everyone. It's like a jerk, an asshole. And
he's got a tragic backstory.
Yeah, and he like makes this bet to take the main girl's like virginity.
Such a fan fiction plot.
Yeah, it's like this whole thing. It's really fucking gross.
Keeps her like bloody underwear as proof.
Yeah, as proof. Yeah, it's really fucking gross. But then like he ends up actually caring for her, and it's very like, oh, he's so mean to everyone else, but like he's nice to me, which is just like a horrible trope. What?
Her name is Tessa.
Tessa.
Fucking Trevor.
It's like a horrible trope. Yeah, but I was literally like 12 years old, like reading that. Not good for my brain development. Probably.
Absolutely not. Like I said earlier, the Love Hypothesis is a repackaged Raylo fan fiction. And if you look at the cover art, they are not even being subtle about it. Like, the cover art is like basically fan art of Kylo Ren and Rey from Star Wars. Like, we all know what we're coming here for. I didn't know this. The Mortal Instrument City of Bones was a Harry Potter fan fiction.
Oh my god.
So when they were like, in that moment of Mortal Instruments where they're like, oh my god, are we siblings? So spoilers for the Mortal Instruments City of Bones, one of the most popular ships, they pulled like an 11th hour twist and they just revealed that like they were siblings the whole time.
Is this a movie? Did they make it into a movie?
Yeah, they did, and then also a TV show.
Does it have I'm like, because I feel like I've watched this, but I feel like it's one of those shows that I only, or like movies that I only watched once when it like came out. Oh my god, no, I have not seen this. Wait, what is this?
So this is the movie and the TV show, Shadowhunters. But those are just like, you know, hey, I wrote fan fiction, let me rechange the names and republish it under a different name. Profit. And sometimes like just original fan fiction will happen, where it's like a Wattpad original, Wattpad exclusive. And sometimes like that's just fan fiction of like, I'm just a girl and here's like a story of my, like, sometimes Wattpad was enough where like you didn't have to have like it be based on like a pre-existing work. It could just be like a really poorly written story and it would get the same like tweenage cred. So like Kissing Booth, Wattpad original, 3 movies now, and you can totally fucking tell. Light as a Feather, I don't know if you've seen that. That's a Wattpad original. Perfect Addiction is coming out. That was a Wattpad original. The Idea of You is an upcoming movie starring Anne Hathaway, based on a Wattpad story about a mom taking her teenage daughter to Coachella, and the mom falls in love with Harry Styles. The joke being that, like, at the time, Harry was, like, famous for, quote-unquote, dating older women. The word we use for now is groomed. But, like, at the time, some mom was like, Harry Styles dates older women? I'm on it.
Wait, I kind of need to see that.
You're part of the problem.
Okay, you can't put Anne Hathaway in a movie and expect me not to want to see it.
Anne Hathaway and whoever they get to mimic Harry Styles next. Dude, people keep asking Harry Styles, what do you think about After? And he's like, next question. He's like, what do you think he's going to say? I love it. I want a cameo in the next one. I'm sure it
makes him deeply fucking uncomfortable.
Like, this is what you think I am?
Yeah.
Author, this is who you think I am? Some chauvinistic, abusive ass? Yeah. Thanks. So, like, we've established that fan fiction is a place where it's just giving into the impulses of the public. Like, kink is welcomed here, more like exploring the taboo relationships are explored here. Like, cliched storylines are kind of accepted because it's fan fiction. Like, okay, if you wanted something more substantial, like, know what you're getting into. Yeah. Like, this is a free, like, people write this stuff of their own volition. No one's getting paid to write fan fiction. If you wanted, like, more of a high quality product, like, maybe go somewhere else, ? This is supposed to be fun. But, like, with this atmosphere, it's kind of no wonder that, like, problematic things pop up. And, like, I don't want to be the fun police and, like, barge into a community with all this history and, like, this hyper, like, accepting whatever and just be like, this is problematic. But, like you said, like, so Wattpad, the average age of, like, a Wattpad user is, like, 13, 14, and 13-year-olds have, like, a ton of feelings about their favorite singer or, like, their TV show who see, like, the bad boys, actually just straight up abusive stories, or, like, smut, where the girl will come in 2 sentences. And this, like, might not be the best way for, like, kids to view relationships and their own sexuality. And, like, kind of like the same way that boys watching porn too young will, like, skew how they expect women to be treated and how they should behave in the real world and how, like, kink and consent and type of things are explored in porn. Kind of the same way, like, girls reading fan fiction too young will give them unrealistic expectations of how sex should be, how they should be, like, how forgiving they should be for the sake of, like, plot, for the fan fiction. A lot of times, just for the sake of drama, writers will just, more like inexperienced writers will just throw out, like, genuinely horrible events and they just have to push through it. So that's super. If you don't have enough of a I guess critical eye to realize that this is just a story, not to be taken literally, as many teenagers don't.
Prefrontal cortex.
Literally, maybe super not good. So, like you were saying, like, I was just thinking of, like, the bad tropes I could think of in After and 50 Shades of Grey off the top of my head. We've got stalking, disregarding consent, anger issues, substance abuse issues, age gaps, like off-putting power dynamics, control issues, obsessive behaviors, threat of violence, emotional rampages, constant fighting, belittling, bullying. Like, these are the most common characteristics of, like, the bad boy fics, of which there are billions. And depending on the type of fanfic, like, if they're, like, a mafia boss or, like, Draco Malfoy, then we could be talking actual murder also as well. That is whatever. And again, I'm not about to say, like, just because you write something bad happening, that means that you're romanticizing it. Not what I'm doing. But fan fiction by its very nature is romanticizing. So, and again, if you have either a reader who doesn't know that they're romanticizing terrible things, or you have an audience that doesn't know that that's what you're doing, it's just kind of like it's a big no-no.
Yeah, that's kind of a recipe for disaster.
These are, like, tropes that bleed out into, like, real world uttos. Enemies to lovers, I get it, guys. Like, it can be spicy to read, but the idea of enemies to lovers, we can't expect them to be healthy. You can expect them to be fun to read. You can expect them to be interesting to read, but you cannot expect an enemies to lovers ship to be healthy. There are a couple exceptions. Like, I think the She-Ra is a good exception. Bridgerton season 2 is a good exception. But usually enemies to lovers is just like, oh, so we're just gonna forgive that. Oh, the she fixes him, bad boy fic, terrible, like, the relentless pursuit of, like, I know you said no, but, like, did you say no?
Yeah.
And when he said no,
keep trying.
And then she's like, wow, I love your persistent nature. Aw, like, relationships fixing mental illness. Another reason that, like, I really
classic.
I really appreciate Heartstopper in that way, honestly, is because, like, they have avoided doing that by insinuating that, like, Charlie has several things that he needs to work on, and just, like, they explicitly say, and I hope they continue it in season 2, there's a line because Nick goes to his mom and he's just like, I wish I could help, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and she's like, love doesn't fix a mental illness, you're doing everything you can, but you're only 16.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, ooh, where was that when Where was that in the fanfiction that I was reading when I was 14? Where so many about Heartstopper. I'm like, where were you when I needed you the most? Old man, young girl is stupidly popular in like more anime circles, but like anytime you're thinking of like it's either like an old man or like a theoretically old man, like a vampire, immortal being, and like freshly 19-year-old icky.
Yeah.
The trad wife epiphany, which is just like she had dreams and ambitions and goals, but then you know what? Actually, she decided that what she really wants is to be a stay-at-home mom. And we're not like I'm not saying that like just through the fan fiction ways she falling in love and getting a kid is the trad wife epiphany. I'm thinking like her deciding to give up her career and to stay at home and just be a wife and mother.
Caretaker, yeah.
Yeah. As like the happy ending that your like 14-year-old author can think of off the top of their head.
Yeah.
Bad news. Step siblings.
Ooh.
It's as popular in fan fiction as it is in porn. Why, society? Why? Ooh, it's like taboo because like their parents, but they're not. I'm like, the door.
It's so fucking gross.
Prison time. A lot of times, again, like if you're young and you need to come up with like you need conflict, but you can't think of anything. Cheating is an easy one.
Yeah.
And if you still want your people to get together, cheating forgiveness, working through cheating, back and forth cheating.
Yeah, and it's never resolved in like healthy communication.
No, usually it's resolved in like revenge or like,
and then they're like, oh, oops.
He waits outside in the rain and like promises that he'll do better, and then
Yeah.
Bully ex-victim is what a lot of people think enemies to lovers is. This is where like the Draco Malfoy, Hermione Granger type of things, where I'm just like, yeah, in the show or like in the movie, like this guy just made this person's life a living hell. But in fan fiction, what if that was like hot? And you're like, what if you just die instead of doing that? I'm so against Hermione. This is me taking a firm stand against Hermione. Sorry, everybody. But yeah. And not to say, again, like, I'm just kind of thinking of, like, off the top of my head, the different, like, detriments that could happen when you're exposed to, exposed? Hello? Exposed to fan fiction too young, eh? And, like, I'm not saying you should lower your standards or, like, settle for less, because otherwise you'll be alone, but, like, as you've said earlier in, like, other episodes about this podcast, that, like, the internet, books, movies, fan fiction with their, like, perfect sex scenes and like larger than life soulmate destiny books about the most thoughtful, perfect love stories ever, it can kind of make you feel like you're being left out of something that's that wonderful. Mm-hmm. Or like, so if you're alone, it could definitely like ease into your head that like you're never gonna live a life like a love story that's that perfect, because it's so idealized and so like romantic and beautiful. You're like, nothing can ever compete with that. Or if like you're in a relationship and you're just like, why can't they ever be as perfect as they are in, like, the stuff that I read? It's like, because again, like, I'm not saying that, like, lower your standards, because no human being could be that great. Not saying that. But I am saying that, like, fan fiction will definitely instill people with, like, standards will be, like, all the way up here. And then if things aren't met, they will be disappointed. Same thing with, like, birthdays, like we were talking about in a couple episodes ago, where it's like, if your standards are perfection, that's not going to get met. And a lot of fan fiction can be, you know, less the good fan fiction out there, the fanfic that stick with us, can definitely give you this idea of like that you're missing out on like a soulmate, once in a lifetime story. And it's just not the case, because that's fiction and it's just someone else's perfect idealized version of like romance. So yeah, that's kind of where I got where my realm took me. And again, like we said, like fan fiction is something where like an overwhelming majority of like writers and readers are women. So there is this like reaction to just refer to fan fiction as stupid. And like, yeah, it can be cringy, formulaic, problematic, poorly written, because as is the nature of like the internet at large.
You're like, it could fucking suck.
It could
be
blow.
the worst piece of garbage you've ever read.
It could be detrimental to society. It could make it so we don't live a better world for our kids when we leave. But fandom can produce like the most beautiful, like haunting, well-written, incredible works of art that deserve to be respected and seen for what they are. And they give that to us for free. Like, no one I'm sure, I shouldn't say no one, but like, no, like people don't go out and write like a Super Smash Bros. Fan fiction with 7 million words because like Nintendo is paying them.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure Nintendo wants them to die. They did that because they cared and they just have so much passion and love for that they pour it out into works for free. And I'm like, I have fan fiction that sticks with me that I think about often that like it was beautiful. Like I kind of want to buy all the other ghosts, the Glee superhero. It's on hardback. I can buy it and its sequel, Gray. I can do it. But yeah, it just, as bad as it is, and it is, there is an incredible like impressive history behind it, and it just kind of proves that like the passion for some, like you can get inspired by anything, and that inspiration can take you down some like really communal spaces where you feel heard and you feel like you can explore some stuff, or you feel like you can engage in the work on like a way deeper level than the original can provide for you. And some people just take that into the ultimate like win, and they twist it and they like rename it and they publish it and they get famous off of it. Like 50 Shades of Grey is the worst thing ever, but not because it's Twilight fan fiction. Like I hate when people say that as like that's the gotcha.
Yeah,
we're like, no, we can go on about the other ways that 50 Shades of Grey is the worst thing on the fucking planet without being like, no, because it's Twilight fan fiction and fan fiction is bad.
Yeah,
the kissing booth is awful for several reasons, but most of them is Joey King's face. not because it directly came from Wattpad. Like they're just because something's fan fiction doesn't mean that it's automatically bad. In fact, like some of the best things I've ever read just so happen to be fan fiction. My favorite book of all time, The Song of Achilles, is technically fan fiction of like the fall of Troy and like the Odyssey. Like that's what it is. And with stuff like that, like what even is the difference between something being just an adaptation of a work or fan fiction?
Yeah.
Depending on, the lines can get blurred depending on how well good the quality is, and yeah, lines do be blurred. Any flute. That was
were you like a fan fiction author? Like did you ever write any?
Yeah. Let's get into it. So for her birthday, my friend really wanted me to write her a Larry Stylinson fan fiction, which is Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson. I didn't ship them, but I knew she really cared about them, and so I wrote her something for her birthday. But the problem was I got too deep into my own AU. This is what was happening. Like I was saying, I got too deep into it because the premise is that Louis Tomlinson, his old husband died. And so then, like, it's just him and a baby to take care of. And, like, he's given up on love, but he's a teacher. And so you have, like, all these, like, little references. Like, I think Ed Sheeran was a teacher. And, like, Perry, which was Zayn's girlfriend at the time, was also a teacher. And so he's just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, and then they're just like, drop her off at daycare. And then Harry Styles is, like, the daycare teacher. And, like, he teaches his daughter to talk and walk. And...
Oh, my God.
And they find love
He's
again.
He's parenting his child.
Yeah.
He's stealing the child and taking it across
and
borders.
Louis' heart. So I wrote that. I wrote a cross/fic with Luna Lovegood from the Harry Potter world and the 11th Doctor, so Matt Smith's Doctor,
Oh my
being
God.
each other's companions and going on adventures.
Matt Smith, interesting.
Yeah, I just thought that they were both that like whimsical. Like Matt Smith was not my favorite. David Tennant was my favorite, obviously. But any idea that David Tennant would get with anyone other than Rose Tyler was simply blasphemous, and I
Yeah.
won't hear anything else today otherwise. But yeah, I had no stake in like Matt Smith's Doctor's romantic life, and I thought that he and Luna had that like
It'd be
air
good, yeah.
of loopiness. All of my fics were so tragic. I could not stop writing tragedy if my life depended on it. I was so emo. I think I wrote a couple Klain fanfic. Usually I was a reader though.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Glee fanfic. Occasionally, Sherlock occasionally, but like people trying to write 14-year-old girls trying to write what they think Sherlock Holmes would say always fell flat to me.
Yeah.
You could tell that
that's so fair.
They were trying their best to just like do like a grown British man and just like looking up thesaurus words for like idiot, and I'm like, I don't know about that one, chief.
Yeah.
You?
So again, I wasn't really a part of like the traditional fan fiction world. The thing is, in middle school, like me and my friends were obsessed with British YouTubers. So we would all write fan fictions, and we would like write each other into the fan fictions. And it was like, I don't know, because for some reason it felt very cringy to like write a fan fiction, like to write yourself into a fan fiction.
Yeah.
And to be like the main like romantic lead or whatever. So what we would do is like, I would still be in the fan fiction that I wrote, but like my best friend was the romantic lead. And like I was writing about like her, and I think she was obsessed. She was into, it was Dan or Phil, I can't remember which one.
A very thing I thought you were going to say like Fred.
No.
My favorite British YouTuber.
Actually,
Fred
I think she loved both of them, and part of it was like they were fighting over her. But then like she would write
those
fan
are gay
fiction.
boys.
I know. We did not know at the time. It was 2012. Then she would write fan fiction about like me and like Finn Harry's, and we would like literally get together and like read each other's fan fiction. And then when I was in high school, me and my other friend, I actually rediscovered this last night because I logged back into my Wattpad to be like, what did I write? Like, what did I have? It was the same thing where like she was writing fan fiction about me, but the thing is, it was like fan fiction about our high school. Like she wrote, oh shit, sorry guys. She wrote a fan fiction about me and the guy who went to our high school who I had a crush on. And then I wrote fan fiction about her and the guy who she had a crush on at our high school. So it was like fan fiction about the school that we went to. And it even had like teachers in there who like were actual teachers there. It was like this whole thing. But yeah, it was very like, I don't know, does that even count as fan fiction? It felt like fan fiction.
It was.
Yeah. But it was like about like us and like our real lives. And then the one about the YouTubers, it was like we were going to Playlist Live or like something like that. And we were also famous YouTubers, and like they were pining after us. Yeah, that was the type of content that like I
feel like the writing like erotic friend fiction is just as much fan fiction as the kissing booth is fan fiction.
Yeah.
At that point, it's just Wattpad fiction.
Yes.
But that still goes under the same umbrella. I was going to bring this up, but I just had no like reasoning for it, so I'm just going to tack this on here at the very end. But it is a weird phenomenon where like straight fanfics tend to be the cringiest ones because those are written by like actual teenagers who like have whatever. And I noticed that like there's so much gay fanfiction out there, written by and for women, which I don't know what that means. Even like, again, like the 60s where like women were writing Kurt and Spock fan fiction, smut, not for men. Don't know what's up with that. Like, I think we tried to briefly touch on it in like the Stan episode where they're just like some fans will just like vehemently want their favorite celebrity to be gay because like it means that like it's just easier to like woobify them that way and to like demasculate them in their mind depending on how they view gay relationships. And
well, I'm like, now that you said that, I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, maybe it's because especially in a show like Star Trek, like they're obviously focusing so much more on like the male characters and like the male leads. So maybe it's simply just because there is more like tension and there is more like content to work off
that
of
is
in
a
that
good
way.
Point. That is a good fucking point. I noticed that too, where like so many male characters are allowed to be like these hyper complex like beings, and then like the female characters just simply aren't given as much. So like fan fiction writers may not just be like that inspired to do that. Because
there's not as much to work off of.
And also like there's a comic that I saw and like it kind of broke my heart. It was a comic about like a father and a son walking in like a pride parade, and they were just like, Daddy, what does this mean? And it means they love each other. Where it's like, despite of everything, and it's like, then they must love each other the most. Yeah. Because they're willing to like suffer through like prejudices and trials, so their love must be really important to them. Yeah. Like a lot of straight couples or like straight relationships are just so fucking half-assed that like either they are explicitly gay, in which point they have to be like the best, like well written to like justify, quote unquote, to like the homophobic bastards. They're like, why can't they just be friends? Like they have to have like the most tender, perfect relationship in order to like justify to homophobes why they are gay in the first place. Or like some readers will just like, or like viewers will see this relationship that they think should be gay because they're so kind, but like it's only through like some sort of barrier that they're not confirmed. So like that's when they take matters in their own hands, because if they were straight, they wouldn't have to write fan fiction about it. They would just be on the screen.
And in a way, it's kind of like more romantic too, because it's like they're quote unquote like not supposed to be together because media during that time like obviously wasn't portraying that. So then it's like more romantic in that way, where it's like despite all of it, like they still end up together and they still like love each other.
I will say though, fanfiction does have a weird relationship with lesbians. Like it isn't nearly, because again, like a lot of women are behind this, and I think are behind this. Like I pull like at Scooby-Doo and I pull up their mask and like, women are behind this. Kind of like this movement, and I noticed that like not statistically, there are like eons more gay ships in fan fiction than there are like lesbian ships, and I think just like straight women just kind of that's not for them. And again, like gay ships, gay roommate are just so far removed that they can focus on like the romance part, and the sex part like can just like check out. Like they can think it's hot, but like they don't have to, you know, it's not. No women were involved in the making of this cum. Oh my god! Oh god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! I apologize.
I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting you to say, but it was not that.
I wasn't expecting me to say that either. That was fucking awful.
Oh my god. No, that was hilarious.
No women were involved in the making of this cum.
Wait, that's gonna be the episode title.
Please, no. No one will know what we're talking about.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Well, I think we're gonna end it there. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, we are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I think that's it.
Inside your walls.
Stop. We are in the microchip implanted in your brain.
In the vaccine.
In the vaccine. Yes, thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed. This was a fun episode. This was a really, it like didn't go where I was expecting it to go, but
near and dear to me.
Yeah.
Read fan fiction, you guys. If you can like look deep inside your brain, right? What TV show, movie, YouTubers, boy bands, like what do you care about deeply that you may have had merch about, right? And just go on AO3 and just Google it and just search them up. And click on the first story that you see that you think the tag, because they'll tell you everything they wanted to say in the tags, and see where it takes you. It's honestly very fun. And sometimes you just need like, yeah, is it good for me? Should I probably? No. It's like it's junk food.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like reality TV.
Exactly.
Like I know it is such garbage, but it is such a pure form of escapism where like you can just like be enwrapped in this world and in these characters, and like you know it's silly, and like you know that like other people probably think it's stupid, but like that's kind of what makes it fun, because you can just like make fun of it, I think, in that way. So it's like when cringy stuff, or like if cringy stuff like does kind of happen, you're like, oh my god.
Do not kill the part of you that is cringe. Kill the part of you that cringes. And you will be a happier person.
Oh my god.
I'm going to pretend I came up with that.
Such words of wisdom. All right. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.